Okay, so welcome to another session of setting up simple DHCP NAT hotspot on Mikrotik for internet access. Now, in our previous tutorial, we did a resolve from the WAN via DHCP, but in this current scenario, we assume we are giving uh, information to our ISP, our internet service provider, via manual settings. So it means we'll be connecting to the ISP's end with manual IP settings. We would have to set up static IPs. It's unlike the previous version that we had to do a simple DHCP client to collect the DNS and then IP information from the ISP. So given this diagram here, you would realize that the ISP has been modified to static IP, but still on Ether 1, and then Ether 2 would go through to our LAN. So we are maintaining the same local address for the LAN, but with the ISP now, they have provided us with a static IP, which has a .19 bits for the network, and then a gateway of 172.16.16.1 with the following DNS available. So in this case, a lot of things were created dynamically when we did our previous session, where routes were created automatically for us. We didn't have to go into routes to define our gateway. We didn't have to define the address. The address was set up automatically by the device. And then we did a simple NAT that did the work for us. But in this scenario, we will be creating the manual address on the wireless, the WAN interface. Sorry, not wireless, but the WAN interface, which is Ether 1. So let's go to our Winbox again, and then we reset our device. So we are logging in, then we reset our device to default settings. Reset. All right. So we have successfully reset our device, and then it's fresh now. Now we go to IP and then addresses. So you realize that it is blank because we have not set up our DHCP client. Now we are setting up a static IP for the WAN. So we click on plus, and then we enter the IP address there, which is 172.16. Remember, this is what our ISP gave us to use. 172.16.22.46./19. So it is a /19 network. That is what we provide to our interface. So it's 172.16.22.46/19. So we select Ether 1 and then we apply. Now, another important thing is to make comments on your configurations such that if another engineer comes to site and then goes through your configuration, or if there is some kind of troubleshooting to be done, it makes your work easier. So to provide a comment, you simply click on comment here, and then you enter the description for whatever configuration you are doing. So this is one interface, so maybe to ISP. Yes. So the comment is indicated there. Then now we add another IP. Remember, we want a WAN interface and then a LAN interface, the LAN for our local network, which we maintained 10.0.23.1/24, and then Ether 2. So we apply and OK. So now we have two interfaces configured here. We need a DHCP server on our LAN. So we go to IP again, then we set up DHCP server on the LAN. So we go to DHCP setup, and then we go next. If you watch the previous, if you follow the previous video, you should be okay with this one now. So go next, and okay. Now we put in our DNS. Remember, we did not enter DNS manually. So we'll go back to IP and then we put in what? DNS. With the previous one, everything was dynamic. So we didn't set up the DNS manually. So now our DNS is 8.8.8.8. We are getting this block of IPs from what the ISP gave us. So if you are using static configuration, this information will be given to you by your ISP. Unless of all you have purchased your own public IP address, where your ISP would take that public IP address from you and then do whatever they would have to do at their end. Then you use that public IP on your WAN interface. It should work just fine. Then, if we have a secondary DNS, which is 172.16. Or we could use Google IP again, which is 4.2.2.2.2. Then we go OK. So we click on allow remote request and then we go OK. Now we go to IP again and then we come to routes. So we need to set up a gateway where our router would need to contact for internet or for WAN services, wide area network services. So we click on add and then under gateway, so we put in 172.16.16.1. This is the gateway our ISP gave us on the diagram. It is 172.16.16.1. So we click on apply. So it is telling us it's unreachable. It is unreachable because on the physical interface of our device, the WAN cable is disconnected. So I will put it on and we see what happens. So I just put in the cable and then after applying, what happens? We realize that it is reachable on Ether 1. So that means our WAN is active now on Ether 1. But remember, this would not still give us internet because we have not done a network address translation. No matter what you do, if there is no NAT, you would never have internet running on your system. You would have to configure a NAT before you get internet running on your system. Now, the beauty of Mikrotik is that if you do a hotspot setup, automatically it generates firewall and then NAT rules, filter and then NAT rules into your system for you, automatically enabling NAT. But you could then go in and modify the NAT to suit your purpose, your field of work or whatever you do. But the moment you do a hotspot setup, it generates that for you. With the previous one, we did the NAT generation manually. So let's do the hotspot and observe it create our NAT rules for us. So we can open the firewall module interface and then watch what happens. So it is blank here. I'll let us see it blank here. Whilst we open the hotspot interface and set up a hotspot, then we see the behavior of our NAT and filter rules as we configure this. So if we click on filter, it is blank, NAT is blank. So when we are done configuring the hotspot, we would go back and see, we would even see it populate as we go on with this configuration. So we click on hotspot setup and then we choose the interface we will be running the hotspot on, the restriction on, which is Ether 2, our local area network. We click on it and then we go next, next as usual. So no certificates, we skip it. No SMTP server, we proceed. It automatically pulls our DNS service. Then we go next. Then we can use myhotspot.com. Mind you, you can change this to any DNS of your choice. So if you have a DNS like johndoe.com, that could be your DNS you'll be putting in there. Thank you. So next, we can just set a dummy password for this, which we can modify later. So once we do this, you realize that it populated the NAT field with some rules, redirect, jump, and then let's say masquerade rules for our NAT. And then when we go to filter rules too, there are input and then drop, there's jump, drop, and then accept rules automatically generated for us. In next videos to come, I'll be explaining what some of these rules that do. The action jump, the action drop, reject, and so on and so forth. We will go into this in detail and then we understand what each of these rules does. in Mikrotik. So once we do this, we can do a simple ping and see. Let's ping our Google Gateway .8 destination net unreachable. So let us find out if our hotspot is actually configured well to run. So we could also open our browser and then we point to myhotspot.com, okay, or we enter the IP address of our network. So if the DNS, the host name fails, you enter the IP address. But in our case, after pointing to myhotspot.com, which we made our DNS, it automatically opened the login page. So if I log in here, I think we used S as the password, then I should have internet running now on my system. So we could go back to the ICMP message and see. We do a ping and see. Now the Google IP is reachable on our network. So you see the difference between using the DHCP client and then using the static IP is that with the DHCP client, you don't have to go back into the router to route and then set the route. You let the system do it dynamically for you. But if you are doing the static assignment of IP addresses, you need to come and manually assign a gateway to it, as though you are creating a route such that this network can communicate with the other network. Of course, in other tutorials to come, we would look at how to create static routes and then how to create dynamic routes between our routers. Assuming you are running networks on different departments, but you would want them to all end devices to communicate together. So we'll definitely be using this route in other ways. But this is another way you can set up your simple network services to run without any problems. So thank you for watching, and then look forward to more videos from us. Thank you.